you, Mark.
Declaration of Independence, the document we spent all weekend celebrating, opens with the words, all men are created equal. 250 years later, we're still asking whether this country means that. Still watching a Black woman surrounded on public transportation by men who would tell her without apology that she doesn't count. I don't
My
say
Lord.
any of this to spoil anyone's July 4th. I say it because 250 years is exactly the moment to ask the hard question honestly. Has America kept its promise, or has it simply gotten better at making the broken promises look beautiful from a distance? That photograph, a lone woman, boxed in, silent, dignified, will likely be remembered longer than any fireworks show from this weekend because it didn't need a caption. It told the truth about the country without saying a word. Our job on this 250th anniversary, and it's not just July 4th, it's all year long, isn't to look away from that truth. It's to decide out loud which America we actually intend to build for the next 250 years. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Barbara, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Barbara, I'm so glad that you are here. I can't think of a more appropriate voice than your voice on this question of how the 250th anniversary was celebrated and the image that has emerged that speaks so much without saying anything about the truth that you've been standing for and articulating. Barbara Arnwine, take your time.
We're having a mind meld today because this is what I wanted to talk about also. This image of this poor sister, this poor Black woman who goes to take a train and is surrounded by part of the 400 white masked men in Nazi, semi-Nazi uniforms surrounding her. And her look of utter dismay is everything. And it's fascinating to me that people have tried to justify this picture. And first of all, what they tried to do, everybody, is to discredit it and to say it's AI. Have you heard this one?
I have.
And people, Mr. Chain, I think his name is Cherney, who took the picture, is a known photographer. His mom is a known journalist. She was one of the first people to post it publicly. This is not AI. This is a real powerful, amazing photographer who happened to catch the moment. And that's what so many great stories are about. The flag, when the picture from Boston where the African-American lawyer who just happened to be walking in the plaza is attacked by this mob with the American flag.
I remember that picture. They're actually sticking the tip of the flag while he's wearing a three-piece suit.
Thank you. And that wasn't staged, people. There was no AI back then. So it's amazing how people want to go to denial and some kind of plot to admit the truth that we live in a country where 400 white men would take the July 4th holiday to come to Washington, D.C. to wear Nazi-looking uniforms, masking their face, big goggles on their eyes, wearing these hats and these little, crazy flag insignias, showing off in front of the Union Station, where that's where the trains all go, people, and that's where they leave from, in Washington, D.C., and showing off their military precision to let you know that they've been training. Their pretend gunshots, all these things that they wanted us to know that they're preparing for war. They wanted us to know.
Barbara, these white men in these uniforms, they came to Washington, D.C. to make a statement.
Oh, yes.
They came to be, They
part of
came to
the
be the
scene.
story on July 4th. They came to be the
That's
story.
correct. That's correct.
And the
And
story
let's
took
see
a
the
turn. The story took a turn with a nameless,
Black
faceless
woman.
sister, right, on the metro, and gave them a story they couldn't possibly imagine.
There are so many hundreds of these pictures all over the DC. Because remember, DC folks still has a lot of black folks. And there are so many pictures of black men and women being surrounded by these people on the train platforms and at the turnstiles.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Barbara, are you there? I think you're muted, Barbara. One of the great challenges is, Barbara, you said that there are hundreds of these pictures all over Washington, D.C. Barbara? Barbara, you've muted yourself. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Barbara says that all over Washington, D.C., if you think about it, every metro stop from DuPont Circle to southeast to northeast to southwest D.C., Metro has an amazing, all the way to the airport, Dulles Airport, an amazing network of trains that function underneath the nation's capital. And African Americans came into contact with these particular individuals. Let's just call it a white supremacist terrorist organization that was designed to intimidate, showed up in great numbers for our Independence Day celebration. And so the sister on the Metro train is not the only person who's had this experience with this group in Washington, D.C. It was designed and meant to instill fear in the hearts of the people of our nation's capital and in our country. They came to Washington and they meant to be the story that white supremacy was on the rise, that the government was going to do nothing about it. And then this, again, nameless person, this sister, this beautiful black woman, commuting, minding her own business, is riding on the train, and she steps immediately into the history of the 250-year celebration of the United States of America. And I shared with you on this program, from the very inception of our arrival on these shores, the history of the date and the significance of July 4th. And how it is either we began months ago, it is either a celebration or a commemoration. It is either 1 foot in or 1 foot out. It is either an interpretation that builds a more perfect union, or it is an interpretation that builds a more perfect states' rights. We've talked about it right here on this program for weeks. The first 157 from 1619 all the way to July 4th. 157 July 4ths, but from the perspective of the slave, just another day. Then the next 87 July 4ths. How do we know 87 July 4ths? Because Abraham Lincoln says 77 years ago, from July 4th, our founding fathers set forth on this nation, on this continent. He begins the speech. That's 157 plus 87. And then he said, from this tragic event here on this battlefield, with neither our ability to add or detract the price that these men have paid on this battlefield, July 4th is going to be different going forward. And then from July 4th, 1863, with a new definition of Gettysburg delivered by Abraham Lincoln in November of that year, every July 4th has taken on a different iteration, including but not limited to the July 4th that John F. Kennedy was president, the July 4ths that Lyndon Johnson was president, the July 4ths that Richard Nixon was president and Ford was president, and the successors all the way up to Barack Obama, and ultimately to Joe Biden, and ultimately to Donald Trump. Every July 4th is different, except what makes this July 4th different is the image and the permanent image, not of bombs bursting in air or who sang the Star Spangled Banner better than Whitney Houston or sang it better than Teddy Pendergrass or anyone else who's ever performed for the holiday. The image of a sister surrounded by white supremacists on a metro station in Washington, D.C. is the defining moment of the holiday. Because every step along this process, the Negro has been present. And so that's what's taking place around our country and around our world. There's some other breaking news that we should also be aware of at this hour. The United States and Iran are escalating tensions in the U.S. They revoked a waiver allowing Iran to sell its oil. This Iranian attacks the three takers in the Strait of Hormuz, and therefore Iran is now in violation, according to Donald Trump, and the peace talks have once again broken down. I was just before the show began paying very close attention to a Manhattan building that I think is 37 stories. I think on the 27th floor, maybe the 21st floor. Anyway, the girders and the infrastructure literally have begun cracking and crumbling, causing not only mass evacuations in that building, but mass evacuations in several buildings in Midtown Manhattan because of fear of imminent collapse, I read, in New York City. And so we are certainly praying for the engineers and for the people and law enforcement in the city of New York, and for people who might be in and around where this structure is apparently compromised and weaker. And that too speaks volumes, by the way, about the role of the federal government in housing in the United States. When you think about the thousands of buildings in the city of New York alone, and even the housing and building standards that we have in Los Angeles, California, where you cannot build a building over a certain height because of the earthquake standards and the shifting foundation in the state of California. And so in the city of New York, they too have standards. It seems increasingly that every time they build a building, they try to reach the sky with the thing. But what has turned out in this particular case is the infrastructure for some of these buildings are crumbling. And not only are local officials responsible for maintaining those buildings, but the role of the federal government in providing resources for local government officials is a factor in sustainable housing and the security of the American people. Barbara, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
I am glad to be back. My deepest apologies for everything. As you know, next week is John Lewis Good Trouble Lives On. And
yes,
we are working right now with the city of Atlanta on our on our flagship event. And that was one of those emergency calls I had to take unfortunately, and my prayers there will be no more of those for this show. They're aware I'm on the show and they know that I need to be present, but I do want to go back to the issue of all of the patriotic front people, and I want to query a question to everybody. What is the difference between free speech and racial intimidation? What's the difference? What Burgum, Secretary, I believe, of Interior, said that this was free speech, but it had a purpose, and the purpose was racial intimidation.
absolutely.
That's what we got to talk about. That it had a purpose. Now, not all free speech, not everything, not all speech is protected, right? You can't run around and say legally that you can't yell a fire in a crowded theater. You can't, as you see this whole charges against Comey, people can't run around and say, I'm going to do something to the president. There's all kinds of limitations on speech. The United States is one of the few countries that does not put limitations and prohibitions on racial hatred based speech. Folks, yes, you're listening to me. France, Italy, Germany, all these countries that you respect as free republics have limitations on racial hatred, intimidation, harassment, speech. So think about it. Why are we the outlier? What if, I want everybody to take the imagination of the pictures you saw of these people. What if they had been holding nooses and marching, swinging nooses? I just want us to think about this, about, what, some people say they're First Amendment absolutists, but that's not absolute. I want to make clear that people understand that's not the norm internationally. Internationally, they do not allow their citizens to be racially harassed.
And that is something we can change at the Supreme Court level. There can be a limitation on speech to include this kind of hateful rhetoric. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We're on the grind with Barbara Arnwine. More when we come forward right here at KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A Washington, D.C. judge says accused January 6th pipe bomber Brian Cole Jr., who is black, is not covered by President Trump's pardons for alleged Capitol rioters. Cole's lawyers argued the clemency should apply to him, but the judge rejected that, saying Cole had not been convicted when the pardon was issued. Los Angeles County will pay $3 million to settle a federal use of force lawsuit. J.C. Houston and Damon Barnes, who are both black, accused sheriff's deputies of excessive force and false arrest after a 2023 incident outside of a Lancaster grocery store. And employees with the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office are under investigation over possible leaks tied to the murder case involving black singer David. NBC LA reports more than a dozen workers are being questioned as investigators look into whether graphic autopsy details were released before the report became public. David is charged with killing teenager Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
Our voices aren't the minority opinion.
They're the American conscience.
This is KBLA Talk 1580.
This is America. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Please be advised. You may want to stop eating the following foods immediately: broccoli, kale, bean sprouts, blueberries, quinoa, spinach.
Wait, what? I thought those were good for me.
Turns out not for everyone, because what's healthy for one person can cause inflammation for another. And the only way to really know what your body needs is to listen to it.
Listen how?
That's where Viome comes in. Viome is a simple at-home gut health test that looks at your body's real-time biology using RNA to understand what's happening inside you right now. When your results come in, you'll learn exactly which foods to eat, which to avoid, and which supplements are right for you, all based on the world's largest RNA-based human biology database and thousands of clinical research studies. And many people who use Viome report more energy, better digestion, and a better mood within months. So stop guessing. Start knowing. Learn more at viome.com/gut. V as in Victor, IOME.com/GUT. And use coupon code GUTHEALTH50 to save $50 off your purchase. Viome. Trust your gut.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. The headline in the newspaper read, Black leaders join forces to bring Destination Crenshaw toward the finish line. Now, beyond the headline phraseology of toward the finish line, if you actually read the article, it said that Black-owned contractors are now being mobilized, major new financing is being secured, and it is anticipated that construction activities will begin within the next weeks. That statement has more hedges than a Beverly Hills mansion, more hedges than a nervous groom's wedding vows written by a divorce lawyer. But it's funny how progress starts moving once somebody turns on a microphone. 4 weeks of KBLA editorials, and suddenly everyone has found their hard hats. It's amazing what happens when the community starts asking questions out loud, and this is why Black media matters. We don't need more empty promises. We need a finished project. Political accountability to Black fellow citizens means that elected officials and institutions must answer for their actions or inaction in ways that are real, measurable, and consequential when they fail to follow through. I suppose the good news here is that LA City Council President and 8th District Representative Marquise Harris Dawson is now officially on the record. But to be clear, he's also on the clock. Remember now, it is anticipated that construction activities will begin within the next weeks. We shall see. We have exercised our right to free speech, but there are other rights the Black business community can exercise as well. This is a classic example of a public nuisance claim, if ever there was one. Again, we shall see. What I can tell you is that Black business owners and Crenshaw community residents have been calling, emailing, and literally showing up in our lobby demanding more and asking how they can sign on to this effort. Put simply, after years of delay, the people have had enough. My big mama put it this way: once a task you have first begun, never finish until it is done. Be the labor great or small, do it well or not at all. Now, I need to put on my hard hat, go outside, and wait for these procrastination Crenshaw construction crews to show up. I'll let you know if and when they do. Trust and believe. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. It's Tenacious Tuesday on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and that puts us right here with Barbara Arnwine, the president and founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition, internationally renowned for her contributions on critical issues, including the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1991, the 2006 reauthorization of provisions of the Voting Rights Act. Barbara, welcome forward to the show. I think Barbara might be muted.
It's great to be here.
Barbara, listen, I got a couple of quick questions for you, and then I want to pivot. I want to pivot back to this John Lewis thing in just a moment.
Yes.
But I want to ask you first, what if on that train it were a group of all Black men surrounding a white woman?
There would have been, as you and I know, they would have been arrested immediately. Listen, there's a double standard that we know exists in this country, and that double standard is still with us. The double standard, still believes that no matter what a white person might do, that they are basically innocent inside. If a black person just looks a certain way, they are assumed to be guilty. And so the presumption is what it's called. And that's a racial presumption of anti-blackness that hunts black people internationally. It's not just here in the US, it's everywhere that I've ever gone in my life.
And the presumption of guilt.
The presumption
follows
of guilt, the presumption of criminality, the belief that we are genetically disposed towards criminality. One thing that this entire 250th has forced me to do is to look back at the antebellum era, to look back at this whole time that was being that surrounded the quote Declaration of Independence. And you see so much of these horrid racist beliefs that people held. But how else did they justify holding other human beings in slavery? So in brutal, vicious slavery. I mean, one thing people say slavery and they think they see mint juleps and people with aprons serving people. They don't realize slavery was one of the most inhumane, brutal, vicious, practices in mankind that's ever done to mankind. In fact, there was a grave dug up in Texas, of all places, where the bodies had been preserved and they were able to actually look at the muscular skeleton, structure of these bodies. And what they found out is that these men had been worked so hard. These enslaved Africans had been worked so hard that their muscles were literally almost torn off their bones. And people don't understand that in the Caribbean, they counted on thousands of people dying each year from being overworked, underfed and overworked. And that's what people don't understand. When you see the stories from Monticello from Thomas Jefferson's era. He's, one of the first presidents of the U.S. And you will see that part of the story there is how they have to have these quotes in what they call slave drivers to beat and whip people in order to make them work harder and to make sure that his factories were able to produce the nails and the other equipment that they produced constantly. So this whole idea, these genteel, nice, slave owners who just didn't exist, folks. It was vicious, money-driven, inhumane exploitation, and they created the mythology of what the subhuman, and put it in the Constitution, 3/5 of a human being.
Let me just add this, Barbara.
Understand.
I want to pivot to what's going on in Atlanta, because I think I'm going to meet you down there. But just before I do, I want to make this point about a term that you used. She said antebellum. Antebellum means after the war. A lot of people date all of American history by the war. That would be 1861 to 1865. We're not talking Vietnam. We're not talking Korea. We're not talking World War I or World War II. We're talking American politics. So the bellum, the war, is 1861 to 1865. And they date reality from that. Pre-bellum, that blacks have no rights that whites are bound to respect in the form of Dred Scott, is an era and a concept that's before the war. And it feels like the woman on the train had no rights that white men were bound to respect. And we're hearing that increasingly that's some pre-bellum, before the war kind of ideological thinking. And then everything after the war. Remember, the war gives us the Democratic and the Republican Party, the two-party systems. From the war emerges liberalism and conservatism. Everything after the war is the modern era, the antebellum. So the antebellum period is the longest period since the Civil War in American history, but all of our politics emanate from that event. Barbara, let me go to John Lewis for a moment. What is going on in Atlanta? What do you want us to do? How can we support the Transformative Justice Coalition? Tell us about the action that we're taking, Barbara.
I'm so glad you asked. Everybody, next week, the 17th through the 19th of July, is the John Lewis Good Trouble Lives On National Weekend of Action. We're going to teach, reach, and preach all those days. Already, as we're talking right now, almost 400 events have been posted around the country, including a whole lot in California. Thank you, Los Angeles. Thank you, everybody who has been signing up to do an event in honor of the living legacy of John Lewis, who fought for our voting rights. He spent 50 years of his life fighting for voting rights. He was beaten on that Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, trying to march from Selma to Montgomery. He was the youngest speaker at the March on Washington. He was the head of SNCC. He was a courageous, amazing person. You know, sometimes people get what I call positional legacy, but he was absolutely courageous, because he would not have been on that bridge but for the fact that he told SNCC he was going to be part of the march on March 7, 1965, and they told him that if he went into Selma and did that march, that they would relieve him of his chairmanship, that he would no longer be allowed to be the chair of SNCC because it was too violent, too dangerous, and they did not want him to be part of that. He looked at them, the story goes, and I've heard it from people who were there, that he looked at them and he said, so be it. If you got to take my chairmanship because I went to be with the people, then do it. Because I will not leave the people of Selma alone by themselves without my presence. I will be there for them come what may. That is a story that people got to understand, because a whole lot of people would have said, oh, I can't, I fought so hard to become chair. I can't afford to lose my position. He stood on courage. It was that courage that got him to the Selma Bridge. That's what people don't know. Yes.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We're on the grind with Barbara Arnwine. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward. We're going to talk about this decision by the FIFA with Barbara. We want to hear about fair and unfair rules. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Chris Holden, former California Assembly member, former mayor of Pasadena, and CEO of LA Fire Justice. I've spent my career fighting for our communities. When I saw Edison celebrating $4.5 billion in profits while Eaton fire survivors struggled to make ends meet, it made me simultaneously sick and furious. Families and individuals are dealing with financial pressure, insurance delays, costly remediation, and the painful question of how to rebuild their lives, while the utility that caused the fire is paying its executives millions and is more profitable than ever. That's not justice. That's a disgrace. Join the lawsuit with LA Fire Justice to hold Edison accountable. We're here to help you, your family, and our community recover. Visit lafirejustice.com today to learn more about your eligibility and how to start.
Advertisement. Douglas Boxer, 221 East Walnut Street, Suite 100, Pasadena, California, 91101 is the attorney responsible for this ad.
LA Fire Justice is proud to sponsor Conversation Live, Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Light a candle, pour some wine. Grab a roll, the soft kind for a little me time. Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear. Wavy edges for my rear. So let the softness caress your soul. Just relax, you're on a roll. Let her rip. Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear.
Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear has the same softness you love, now with wavy edges that tear better than the leading one-ply brand. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Small businesses are the heart of America. But you don't have to go it alone. As the nation's largest nonprofit resource of expert business mentoring, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses for free. Get the connections, education, and guidance you need with SCORE. We're ready to help. Find a mentor today at score.org.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. 10 Toes In serves as a mentorship and domestic violence prevention program. They support, educate, and empower couples during and after incarceration. They assist male returning citizens to re-enter society successfully and to help them maintain a healthy relationship with their romantic partner. They offer a mentorship support group for formerly incarcerated men. 10 Toes In teaches its Intimate Relationships 101 curriculum at male prisons throughout the state of California. They host sister support group meetings for women who are intimately involved with incarcerated and formerly incarcerated men. 10 Toes In is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. To access their services or make a donation, please visit them online at 10toesin.org or find them on Facebook or Instagram. They are healing lives through relationships. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
See website for details. MyFastCash.com is not a lender and does not make credit decisions. Must be 18 years old. Not available in all states.
The mechanic called. The repair's going to be $750.
Oh, we got rent and the car payment. On top of groceries, gas, and other bills. We don't have an extra $750 right now.
We could try MyFastCash.com. When short on expenses, you can go to MyFastCash.com and could get money as soon as the next day.
MyFastCash.com?
Yes, they can connect you to one of the largest lender networks. And you can get a loan even with bad credit. We could be approved for up to $5,000 fast.
$5,000? That must be a long process.
Nope, approval can happen in just a few minutes right from your phone. And funds could hit our account by tomorrow.
If you have a regular source of income and a bank account, you could be approved for up to $5,000, even with bad credit history. And the cash can hit your bank account the next day.
Honey, I'm going to myfastcash.com right now.
Thank goodness.
If you need extra cash, go to myfastcash.com. That's myfastcash.com. myfastcash.com.
Loan availability, approval, and funding times vary. Terms apply.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 15.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to our final segment on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show at KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest is none other than Barbara Arnwine, who's always on the grind and the president of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Barbara, very quickly before I get to our final two questions, how can we support your work? Unmute, Barbara.
You can go to TJCoalition.org. TJ Coalition.org and make a donation. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
How can we join you in Atlanta? Where do we meet up in Atlanta? What do we need to do to be part of Good Trouble?
We're working. That's what I've been working on the whole time this show has been going on and more longer. It's on the exact location, and we will be posting that on our website. People can go to not only tjcoalition.org, but Good Trouble Lives On. Now, if you want to go to Good Trouble Lives On right now, you want to do three things. You want to look for how you can become, your organization can become a partner. You want to look for how you might host an event. You could do a watch party with just 10 people. You could do a rally. You could do a voter registration drive. You can do a canvassing drive. You can do movie showing. There's so much you can do in honor of the legacy of John Lewis and to help make sure that we are all making sure that we're prepared to vote in 2026. The other thing you can do is you can find where's an event near you that you can attend. I do this all the time when there's a major mobilization, and I decide if I'm going to be part of a bridge brigade. I decide if I'm going to be part of a watch party. I decide if I'm going to go to a rally. I decide if I'm going to march. I mean, there will be all these kinds of events because on the Teach Day, which is the 17th, we're going to be teaching people about how to protect their voting rights. On the 18th, we're going to be reaching people to make sure that they're registered to vote, even those who have been purged and those who think they're registered but may no longer be on the list. And the third thing we're going to do is we're going to preach on that Sunday. And we have churches and we have synagogues and we have temples and we have all kinds of formations joining us.
Barbara, quick question, last pivot, last question before your word of hope. Did some Americans quietly root for us to lose at the World Cup, even though they felt bad for the team members? And did the team seem a little off in spirit because of the stress and the sideshow and the perception that our nation rigged the game when the chief executive of our country called the head of the FIFA organization? Barbara?
There's certain things that are just inappropriate. And I think that people, when you're in a sport, you want to win it based on your talent and based on your team spirit and your team capabilities. You do not want any impression that somebody's put their finger on the scale. And I think that the interference by the president was totally inappropriate under these circumstances.
You know, it's very hard for me to believe that given Donald Trump's love of sport, that he's not put his finger on sporting events in the past, from boxing to soccer to
what about golf?
UFC.
Heard about
UFC. We see him pick up his golf ball all the time.
Exactly.
And switch another one out of his pocket.
And some other stuff on the golf course. Yes. So, so I just want, people to understand that, it's not a hatred of America. It's a hatred of an arrogance that assumes that you are entitled, that you're privileged, that you're better.
Terrible lessons for our children. Terrible lessons for our children in this as well, right, Barbara? I mean,
yes,
this is not
absolutely
the kind of example we want to see.
Not at all. But that's why it's important for those like us to use those First Amendment freedom of speech rights to speak out when we see something that's wrong. And remember, that's what John Lewis said. If you see something that's wrong, say something. If you see something that's wrong, do something. That was one of his famous, quotes. He is, without question, such a motivating factor towards good in our country. And that's why I'm so amazed and happy with all the people who are going to turn out next week and be part of Good Trouble Lives On. But I'll see you hopefully next Tuesday prior to then to talk about what's going on and to bring you all that great news and hopefully to see you in Atlanta because I can't wait.
It was an honor to serve in the Congress of the United States for 17 years with John Lewis. I sure sorely miss him. And I'm glad that Barbara Arnwine is carrying on the work. Barbara, we have about 2 minutes before the end of the show. Can you provide the country with a word of hope?
Yes. The most important thing, people, is to take a stance. You know, I took a stance and I wrote on the 4th of July, I wrote about this book. And what I reminded people is that the Declaration of Independence reminds us when government fails to serve the people, that rebellion is required. And I talked about all of those slave revolts, even post the Declaration of Independence, especially Nat Turner and so many others. And I talked about the revolts that have happened in our cities, you know, in the 70s and the 60s, 70s, during many periods of history when Black people have been particularly abused and we have risen up. I just talked about that because I want to remind people that this is our country. It owes all of us, every single American is owed human dignity and the right to vote. And so people, let's get our vote on. Let's never turn our backs on what our ancestors did to build this country so that we would have the right to vote.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We want to thank Barbara Arnwine for her regular contribution to our show. I mean, she is some kind of busy. I'm looking forward to seeing her in Atlanta in the not too distant future. Thank you very much for joining us. Looking forward to hearing and seeing everyone tomorrow. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
KBLA 1580.